Good evening, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to this edition of Jays Latest. I am your host, Craig Borden, here to talk all things Toronto Blue Jays after a day game for a change. So, we're going to talk some Blue Jays baseball. And unfortunately, it was a little bit of a rough day, but we have one thing we got to get to first, and that is there has been some, obvious talk about Vlad Jr. extending with the Blue Jays, and there has been some good news leaning in the right direction, is what it seemed. But in an interview today that was in all Spanish, it has come out that Vlad has also mentioned that he is not terribly aware of all these extension talks and how close the Blue Jays technically are. So I wanted to just throw the idea out there that this could be just as much of, fun contract games as anything else. Or it could be just the fact that, Blue Jays fans are continuing to get, things thrown at them. I guess would be the best way of saying it. The Toronto Blue Jays fandom has been hoping and praying that we get to keep Vlad Jr. and have him as a Blue Jay for life. Apparently, he wants to. We want to see that. We do want to, see this wonderful extension happen, and we've been hoping and praying that it was going to get done before spring. Then it didn't get done in spring. Then it didn't get done as the season started. Okay. Then we heard rumors that we were going to get another offer. Apparently, he got another offer, was the report. Sounds a little wishy-washy at the moment again. So just providing the update. I personally want to see Vlad in a Blue Jay uniform all day, every day for the his entire baseball career. Nobody does that anymore, and I really just would love us to see keep our guy. We've got him on the team, international signing, brought him all the way up through the minors, worked with, funny enough, the same manager he has right now. And I just want to see it. I really do. I hope they figure something out. But right now, it's not terribly optimistic after I'd say, the shade that we ended up getting from Vlad in that interview today. But it is what it is. And it's not going to go away until one thing happens or the other. And it's just going to be what it is for the rest of the season. So let's dive into the game today. And we're going to start with all things first is the Blue Jays unfortunately did lose 5-0 in the Mets home opener for the baseball season this year. And in a day game, the Yankees also had their first home game, I guess, too. No, I take that back. It was their playing against the Pirates. So both New York teams playing at 3 o'clock today. But the Mets end up taking this one 5-0 after jumping on Kevin Gausman really, really quickly in the first inning. Goss was really, really good. I don't want to knock that terribly. I want to make sure that everybody understands that piece, because let's just talk Kevin Gausman to start. 2 runs in the first inning off of a Pete Alonso home run. It's is what it is. But I can't believe Alonso hit this ball out. It goes out over the other batter's box, off the plate, hits it off the end of the bat, and the thing goes over the opposite field wall. It was not an easy pitch for Pete Alonso to hit out of the ballpark, but it's also the big, powerful polar bear that's hitting the home run. So I'm not terribly shocked that it did go out. But at the end of the day, it was not like he laid him a little cookie right over the plate and he knocked it out of the ballpark. Um, Professional hitter Pete Alonso. There's a reason that the Blue Jays were hunting him over the offseason. There's a reason they got paid by the New York Mets to come back and be their first baseman for the foreseeable future. But to that point, I'm not shocked. But at the end of the start, you look at what Kevin Gausman ended up doing against Trevor Megill today, or Tyler Megill today, and Kevin Gausman ended up pitching 5 1/3, gives up just the 2 earned runs. It was only 2 hits. So, and I take that back. He got the third and run was also off of technically of him. No strikeouts. That's the weird thing with me with always Gausman. He's always so low on the strikeouts, even with that splitter, but they just can't barrel the thing up. It's just how it works for Kevin. So, but Goss is looking like Goss. And that's the one thing I think Blue Jays fans need to take away from that. This is just one of those unfortunate days where the Blue Jays offense did not show up, which unfortunately Kevin Gausman is way too familiar with. So, on that note, let's talk about the other side of this, and that is the Blue Jays offense. So outside of the obvious zero, it was the first shutout by the New York Mets on opening day in a really long time. And I think it was only their second time period for opening day, is what I heard in the news. Um, Outside of a triple by George Springer, the Blue Jays had 4 hits and Vlad had 2 of them. So that is pretty encouraging at the end of the day. But yeah, it was Springer and yeah, Vladdy, the only ones that got hits today. Not a lot going on there. But the other piece that I want to be sure that I'm clear about is they were also maybe suffering from a little bit of bad luck because Miguel was doing really, really good on the mound. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to throw shade on his awesome start to, for opening day in the Queens. Alejandro Kirk also had a ball that was hit 103 miles an hour today, and it was right at somebody. Vlad and George had the other ones that were over 100 miles an hour for the Blue Jays. So the exit velocity was there. They made up some good barrels, according to the baseball savant today. But at the end of the day, they weren't falling for hits. So you don't get guys on base. You don't get to turn them around. But Taylor Megill did a great job for the Mets today. I have to give credit where credit is due, but that tail of everything being the unlucky offense today. That was the big thing. Like I said, good contact didn't quite translate to hits. And if you don't get enough base runners on, you're not going to do that. Because outside of that, the Blue Jays only had 3 base runners on walks. They had an opportunity with 2 outs when George Springer just ropes a triple. And this is in the left center field gap. And then right after that, Will Wagner ended up walking. The unfortunate reality of that was that Ernie Clement came up afterwards and just popped the ball straight up to the second baseman. So weren't able to capitalize on that, but they didn't even get any runners barely in a scoring position today. 0 for 3, and like I mentioned, just one of them only left 7 runners on, period. As I mentioned, it was just a rough day of bad luck and not squaring the ball up for the Toronto Blue Jays. So hopefully they can put something together a little bit better tomorrow. Wanted to mention that Fluharty ended up coming out of the bullpen. Mason Fluharty, that is, Blue Jays' 19th top prospect, I believe. Had a rough day. So he gave up the other 2 runs to eventually make this a 5 spot for the New York Mets. That wasn't so much fun. Former Met Jacob Barnes came out and pitched an inning at 2/3, and then Yariel Rodriguez, Yayrod, looked pretty good in his 1 inning of work to close out the Blue Jays pitching stats. But like I said, you ended up having a day where you were fighting the Mets actually hitting well enough to win this one. And Juan Soto ends up picking up his first RBI as a Met in New York. So that was his first one at Citi Field. So that was really fun, I guess, for Mets fans. I just feel, as some of the articles I've been reading since the Blue Jays game today, we've been just beaten by the guys that we couldn't sign this offseason with Juan Soto and Pete Alonso. So that article headline kind of stung a little bit, but tis what it is. So, but anyway, let's talk about the future. We obviously have, all weekend in Queens playing at Citi Field. Tomorrow, we're going to get Chris Bassitt back on the mound, who obviously used to be a Met. So that's going to be a fun one. I look forward to this evening game tomorrow and having a little bit more, norm. Was it the cold here in New York that was maybe the horrible problem? Blue Jays hadn't played out of the dome yet. So maybe that was part of it. But we're going to have Griffin Canning to go against. He's got a pretty decent start, but he didn't pick up the win last time. 5 2/3 innings, 4 strikeouts, had a 1.06 whip and a 3.18. So that's like basically a run in his last start. But like I said, we're going to get Bass on the mound, who had a very good start in his last outing for the Blue Jays. Gave up just the 1 run, I believe. Got the win, 6 innings of work, 7 strikeouts. That was the part I'm looking forward to seeing what Bassett's doing, because that right there, if he can start getting the ball to the point where he's missing more bats, that was what was really hurting him last year, was those barreled up hard contact pieces. If he's getting more strikeouts, I think that is going to greatly help what he's doing, because it just proves that he's missing those bats. And I was right. Was there 1 earned run, and he actually scattered 8 hits? Wow, I didn't see that last week or during that outing. It just didn't feel like he was doing that. Funny enough, there's only a couple of guys that have actually faced Bassitt a lot. Jose Suri is the current hit leader for the Mets against Chris Bassitt, and he's got 1 hit but 2 RBIs. So there it is. And then meanwhile, you have Francisco Lindor that's faced him 14 times, and he hasn't gotten a hit yet. Oh no, I take that back. He's got 1 home run. So there you go. So that's what's going on, Blue Jays fans. We hope you've been enjoying all the fun here on Jay's Latest. I am going to be here every day as much as humanly possible to be able to talk to you all things Blue Jays. Make sure you hit those like, share, subscribe buttons for us so that we can get out to more Blue Jays fans and we can have a good time. And make sure you hit those comments and all that kind of stuff and submit some questions for us. We'd love to chit chat and talk out. And make sure you catch us on Jaybird Watching on the weekdays. That's my personal podcast and here on Fan Arc every other week, every other day. So let's go. Have a good night. Go Blue Jays.